Mr. Vice Chair and honorable members of the government of Nepal, USAID, our UN partners, and especially our academic institution partners, and within that group, the students who are here, the student scientists. In many ways, these symposia were organized to generate interest, enthusiasm, to inspire, and to motivate research in this country by young scientists who are going to solve the problems in the future, who are going to define the pathways between agriculture, the production of food, to how that food moves into markets, by what means, what kind of food, where is it going, at what cost, who is producing that food, what are its various pathways to the home that provide the basis for food security that has become such an important concept in assuring good nutrition, not only in Nepal, but throughout the world, especially in low-resource countries. How does that food security translate into diets? Diets of everyone in the home, but we emphasize the diets of women of reproductive age, of young children, and because those groups are particularly susceptible to the consequences of malnutrition. How do those diets enhance and maintain and sustain the nutritional status of young women and children? How does the diet improve the nutritional status so that women can sustain the demands of pregnancy and lactation from one child to the next, from one generation to the next? This is the pathway by which this symposium was conceived several years ago with Professor Patrick Webb and others here in the room, as a way to bring together a very diverse set of concepts, very diverse sets of reality. Those pathways really do exist. But as we put these ideas together, we realized how poor the evidence actually is linking them. How we can identify linkages that are associated with each other across the agriculture to markets, to food security, to diet, to nutritional status access, and which are causal, which ones actually lead to change. And how do you take those changes and feed them back to make the system work a little better? With that comes the whole idea of a systems approach, the food systems that lead to diet that can sustain the health and nutritional well-being of the population. These are challenges that drove the concept for this symposium. Not at all that there was no prior work. This was not an invention. This was taking the momentum of the times, the interest in linking agriculture to nutrition and bringing substance to those pathways. They are very complex. It involves many different sectors, and that is part of the challenge, but it's also part of the excitement to bring different sectors together, to collaborate different concepts, definitions, ways of measurement, indicators, research designs that may deal with a piece of that pathway at any point along its route, or larger swaths of that pathway. This leads to innovation, it leads to ideas, it leads to the right questions to ask. You have to have the right question in research. It has to be driven by questions. And so these symposia have been aimed at trying to stimulate those questions, to raise interest to do research across multiple sectors, to create designs and define procedures that can be quantitative, that can lead to appropriate analyses of data, and the inferences that you can draw from those data about the questions that you have set out to ask. It leads to attention to how the data are interpreted, how reports are written, and the importance of publications. And I'm really speaking to the young scientists here, because you need to take every one of those steps forward in order to advance evidence that can lead to change. Without the rigor of research, without learning the lessons well, without being in the field and doing the research, whether it is about an agricultural question or a nutritional status question, the need for attention to design, conduct, rigor, definition, quantification, inference, and publication is key to driving the evidence platform higher and higher so that we can get something done. So the first symposium was called Food Security and Nutrition in Nepal. What else could it be called if you're trying to get this concept going? Taking stock and defining priorities. So, and that's what that session did. It tried to come together with a wonderful number of people to address that issue. The second one was called Science and Policy for Health, Agriculture, Nutrition, and Economic Growth. In one sentence, trying to bring those sectors together and to link science and policy right from the start, that this was an important set of linkages to draw upon and to engage and to understand in order to move evidence forward. The third symposium was entitled Agriculture, Food Systems, and Nutrition, Connecting Evidence to Action, realizing that the knowledge is important, but it has to lead somewhere. In good public health parlance, you have to drive action with evidence, but you can't let it sit in a journal. You have to move the information off the pages of a peer-reviewed journal into programs, into policies, into the community. You need to engage government, academics, industry, and the community. And so it requires that kind of action. And now we are at a stage where we're saying mind the gap, mind the gaps. If you're in London, you mind the gap or you fall off the train. But here we're talking about minding the scientific gaps. We're talking about the questions again. We're continually talking about what questions to ask and how to go about answering them. And so it is quite exciting to have this level of interest in this symposium. This is clearly the most exciting scientific meeting of the year in nutrition and agriculture in the country. And it is supported, that notion is supported by all of the young people who are here. We want you to learn, we want you to ask difficult questions. We want you to walk away from this meeting inspired, picking up new skills, but frequently we don't pick up new skills at meetings, we pick up ideas, and we pick up inspiration, and we pick up motivation, and we learn to network. Don't leave here without meeting 25 different people over the next 2 days. Come up, corner people. There are all ages, all experiences, all walks of the agriculture to nutrition course span here. Do not be afraid. Come up and talk to people. Tell us who you are. Tell everybody who you are. Network, because that's how you start to work with people. So it's a personal pleasure to be here. I've been coming to Nepal for 40 years this year, starting out working with Nepal Netrajyoti Sangh in Tripurashore with Dr. Ramprasad Pokhrel and colleagues, working in Sarlai for many years, and now with Poshan with the Nutrition Innovation Lab, Feed the Future activities with Tufts. It continues to be an exciting process. And perhaps in those 40 years as a student of the country, what I see most dramatically changing is the presence of young scientists who have skills, who are trained, and are committed to this country. to drive these agenda forward. So, without further ado, I will stop. Thank you very much for your attention.